Namaste friends. In last video, we have understood the basics of GDP and in which circumstances it came into existence. Now in this video, we are going to see 6 major shortcomings and pointwise. So these are the 6 points that we will discuss in today's video. First, ignorance towards negative externalities and environmental degradation. Second, ever increasing, unlimited and unexhaustive growth promise. Third, it treats all production equal. There is no qualitative difference. Fourth, GDP is a born of manufacturing age. Fifth, it is inconsiderate for informal sectors and unpaid services. Sixth, GDP per capita talks about averages, not distribution. So let's understand these pointwise with examples. 1.3 Shortcomings of GDP. GDP has many well-documented shortcomings. We will look into some detail to understand how it fails to meet as a measure of success. First, problem of ignorance towards negatives. GDP as a measure of progress emerged during the era when natural resources still seemed unlimited and quality of life meant high economic standards of living. But in later course of time, we are very sure that these both are not actually hold any truth. So let's see how. If prosperity is judged only by increased economic activity, then car accidents, hospital visits, illnesses such as cancer and toxic spills are all signs of prosperity. Therefore, it does not necessarily indicate the economic well-being of country, since activities that are detrimental to the long-term economy like deforestation, strip mining, overfishing, murder, terrorism all increases today's GDP. So, if we see environmental degradation is rarely accounted in the GDP calculations and instead it is reflected otherwise. Let's take an example. In 1989-90, the infamous Exxon Valdez oil spill increased Alaska's GDP. Alaska is a state in the USA and that spill also showed up as a net economic gain in the US. It increased because so many people were trying to clean up the spill. The expenditures associated with the cleanup effort, including restaurants, hotels, shops, gas stations and stores, all experience an upward blip in the economic exchanges. Second problem is the problem of ever increasing, unlimited and unexhaustive growth promise. From GDP's perspective, bigger is always better, but in real world that is not always so. Fundamentally, GDP is a materialistic concept. Higher production is the sole imperative. The more goods produced and services rendered, the better. Whether any of this makes people better off in reality is a different matter entirely. Also, as questioned by Fritz Schumacher in his book published in 1972, Small is Beautiful, he says that the idea of unlimited economic growth, more and more until everybody is saturated with wealth, needs to be seriously questioned. And ever bigger machines, entailing ever bigger concentration of economic power and exerting ever greater violence against the environment, do not represent progress. They are the denial of wisdom. So we need to ask a question. Growth, that we are told a sign of prosperity. But is growth truly possible if its wake continuously generates loss? Loss of connections to place and community, loss of clean air and water, loss of other species who are truly part of our ancestral family tree? It is a question that I ask you to think today after this video. Third, it treats all production equal. There is no qualitative difference. Kuznets was uneasy about a measure that treated all production equally. He wanted to subtract rather than add things he considered detrimental to human well-being, such as arms, financial speculation and advertising. GDP makes no distinction in whether it is good or bad for society. From the perspective of GDP, nuclear warhead and terrorist attacks will do just as well as hospital beds and education for children. Fourth point is, GDP is a born of manufacturing age. It measures only the manufactured or material things. Yet in advanced countries like USA, up to 80% of production is in the service industry. GDP doesn't do services, At least not very well. It is good at quantity but very poor at services, very poor at quality. If the food or service improves at your local restaurant, GDP won't notice. Similarly, if an airline safety record improves, it won't notice. In fact, GDP might prefer an plane crash so that it can build a new plane. Fifth point is GDP is inconsiderate for informal services and unpaid services. GDP only considers paid activities. The volunteer work, unpaid housework, or looking after an elderly or aging relative, and other obviously valuable activities count for nothing. GDP has skewed priorities in this sense. There was an interesting study conducted to find out how much moms should be paid for their work. Salary.com determined using its salary wizard that the median annual salary of a mother in 2018 is $1,62,581. This is a multifunctional work that a mother does successfully for her family. Salary.com aimed to market price mom in the same way it prices a job. For 10 different titles, a nearly 100-hour work week, and a 6-figure annual rate, moms may be the most valuable workers in any economy. In poor countries, the informal sector is practically invisible to the GDP. Yet, in much of the world, the informal economy counts for the most. It is so erroneous that some academic studies say monitoring economic activity from space through satellite images of nightlife might be more accurate than on-the-ground GDP. Sixth point. GDP per capita talks about averages, not distribution. In an age where a huge cause of social dislocation is inequality, GDP has nothing to say about distortion, and averages are misleading. For better understanding, let's understand this through one example. Let's say we are studying average income per week of 2 provinces of a country. Currently, they have an average of $10 per week as an income. So it is the average. After our improvement project, the average income has increased to $25 at both the study areas. Can you say that it has been beneficial in both the areas in the same way? Just record your answer. The income after the project can be seen as below. In both the cases, the average is $25. But if we see the distribution, it is clearly seen that in second case, there is a better standard of living, equity in distribution, and it's a preferable case. And compare the first case. There is no improvement in this section at all, but it won't get noticed in averages analysis. For simplicity, here we have taken only 9 readings, but the idea of averages or means will be the same for higher numbers as well. Medians are better than means. A rise in average GDP actually might be a bad thing if 99% of the people lives resentful at how the 1% are making good. I hope now you have also started thinking about the issues and problems with GDP. As usual, there is an interesting quote at the end of the video that you will also love. I have given references for the article I referred for this video in the description below. Do read for more details. Now, we have discussed about the problem, but what is the solution? So, we will explore that in our next video. Thank you. Consider to like, share and comment about your views on this video. Please subscribe and share to stay connected. Let's dare to build a sustainable world. Thank you.